Well, hey, Shawn, it's great to have you here on the podcast, or pardon me, the Truedad Napcast. Yeah,
Nice.
we only have time for a quick nap, so that's it. But the reason I wanted to have you on, for those people that don't know, is when I first got to a point where I had heard enough about coaching, and I had heard enough about people getting better through coaching, that I was like, okay, well, it's time for me to give this coaching stuff a shot. And you were the person that I thankfully called, and was just, you were just an amazing and positive influence in my life. And so much so that when I wrote my book, this is the quote that I got you to, sorry, I'm just going to quickly read it out.
Sure.
Learning to properly process your emotions is critical to your well-being and, ultimately, your fulfillment in life. Most people don't feel, they react. So this means going much deeper than just the reactionary emotions, as powerful as they may be. It means facing and feeling all that we've been unwilling to face in ourselves, unraveling our unconscious narratives, and meeting unmet needs. From there, you can experience the glory, peace, joy, and love that is essential to your true nature. So I know that there's a real shift when you finally have a baby, where you have to sort of acknowledge some things that you probably never have. And for me, one of the big ones was like, because I always thought I was a pretty mushy guy, but the intensity of feelings, that weird word feelings. So why don't you just break down that little sentence and just give me a little inside look on how you deal with feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, Graham, I'm honored to be here. So thank you for having me. This is great. So feelings. So a lot of people come to, I've had a practice for over a decade, well over. And I started off as a coach, became a trauma-informed therapist, and kind of bring both worlds together. Right? And one of the biggest things so people will come to me for, especially anxiety. So anxiety, panic attacks, stress, overwhelm, things like this, right? Yeah. And these are all very valid and really overwhelming and difficult emotional patterns to be stuck in. And I guess the best way to describe the feelings versus the emotions, or reactive emotions versus the deeper emotions that I'm talking about in that quote, because I remember the quote too that I share with you. The best way to look at it is, actually, here's a really great way to look at it. This was told to me years ago by a therapist I went to and learned from. And he said the average person has about, 4,000 unconscious points of pain that they haven't dealt with. So unconscious meaning we're not aware of them. And I actually agree with this based on my work. Right?
Sure.
And, I've worked with rape survivors, assault victims, war victims, things like this, as well as just ordinary people who struggle with anxiety or struggle with depression or conflict in relationships, things like this, right? And those 4,000 points of pain, they get pushed down because wherever they originated, most of them in childhood actually, but as adults as well, like throughout our lives, we didn't know how to deal with the emotion. It was too painful.
Sure.
Okay. Or it wasn't okay to deal with for some reason. Right. And so these emotions, they get trapped in our psyche, literally in our body, actually. This is the heart of somatic processing. And with those emotions, there's narratives that go with them. So beliefs, rules, roles, self-images, things of that nature. And again, all this is pushed down.
Yeah.
Right. But it's still there. And so we develop what's called a coping strategy or coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay. And that will be things like avoidance, indecision, procrastination, even addiction.
Sure.
Is that, as serious as that is a coping strategy. Addiction to sugar, addiction to drugs.
Yeah.
Right? Depressive patterns, anxiety patterns. And so some of these are very, very serious, very damaging in our lives. And so that's where we need to start. But it's important to understand that these reactive emotions aren't the depth of the emotion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're very valid, very real, but there's something deeper that they're trying to help us avoid.
I remember you said something to me. Well, you said a bunch of things that really stuck, but one of the things that I thought was just like the most counterintuitive when you first said it, and then just like the most beautiful thing after I thought about it, was when we have something that that we're feeling that our brain is giving us something negative, or we're just feeling down or something. It's usually that your body is trying to. I think it was the 3 Ps. I can only remember 2. Like prevent you from something, to protect you from something, and so you're like, oh, this feeling I have is to make me stop, right? To put me in my safe zone. And, of course, when you don't know about those feelings, like you hate those feelings, like I just hate that feeling. I want to get rid of it. I never want to think about it again.
Yeah.
Right. And you said to me, oh, when you actually come across that feeling, you should stop and say like, thank you. Like, I love you for what you're doing. And I was like, what? And then the more I think about that, it always really stops me when, say I don't want to do something or I'm just feeling really low. I'm like, okay. Hey, thanks, inner me. Like, I know what you're trying to do, but it's cool. I got it from here. And as soon as I just sort of label it and say it out loud, it just kind of all the power gets sucked away from it. And I'm just thankful that I'm back in control of the thoughts, like I'm the one that's still guiding the ship. And because when I relate it back to the intensity of having a baby and how it's not so much the baby, but it's just that all of your circumstances in life are different. Yeah. And how do you take the intense feelings of maybe your relationship, intense feelings of your insecurity with dealing with a small baby, being at work, not being at home, those feelings, every feeling all of a sudden changes. So if you're a dad that hasn't had like a lot of time to like kind of like grind in on their emotions and think about it, what are some just some good basic tips to like to cope, to sort of understand? Maybe not cope is the right word, but understand. Yeah.
Good catch.
Yeah, working on it.
So a lot of people when they first come to me, they'll say, I want to learn better coping skills. Don't cope.
Yeah.
That's the first one. Get rid of that altogether. Don't try to change your mindset. Don't try to think positive or, these are all wonderful tools. There's nothing wrong with that. But or you can raise your vibration. You hear things like this, right? But it's like it's a mask. It keeps us from actually dealing with what's there. And if we don't, so here's a really important part of this. If we don't deal, especially as dads, so I didn't know this when my kids were growing up. They're all young adults now, right? So whatever we don't deal with emotionally, so all those unconscious parts that I talked about, right? Our kids inherit them, no matter what we do. And they will do one of two things. They'll either then act them out in their own lives, so they inherit the exact same patterns, or they'll rebel, they'll go the opposite, but neither one is authentic to those kids. And so if we really want to be the dad that we're meant to be, should be, we have to do that deep work. There is no other option. Yeah,
it's really, you when you have babies, there's something that you realize that you can't keep them from knowing you. Like, they're going to know you better than you know yourself or your partner or anybody else, because they know, like, innately, just like we know our parents, right? We can look at our parents and go, oh, well, as you get older, you're like, now I see you as a human, not just as mom and dad, right? And you can think about why they did what they did and why they made their choices. But it's very true that unless you start kind of getting to know yourself quickly and feel, for all the good and all the bad, you can just tell it comes through in your parenting. I talk a lot about, usually most of the problems that we have with the kids are, I realize are my problems, not the kids' problems. It's like, oh, wait a sec, I want to rush them out the door, or I want to do this. And like, so of course they're just like, well, it's that sort of balance. So yeah, it's very, very impactful. It is. For sure.
And it's really easy for a lot of parents will blame their kids. Well, my kid's being a little, or, I used to think the same thing. Okay. And my kids have had to do a lot of work as adults to heal these parts, right? But it's not the kids. It's not the kids.
Yep.
It's how you're dealing with them and whether you're making what they're going through, their emotions. So for instance, kids get angry, right? Many parents make that not okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Just what's done with it, right? So, or that for at least for our generation, you have a kid, especially boys, the kid that's crying. I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? It's not the way to go about it.
Yeah.
Our kids in those moments, they're only expressing what they're feeling. That's it.
Yeah, they're so raw, aren't they?
Yeah.
Kids are just like a live wire.
Yeah.
They live in the moment. They're not like, oh, remember that 6 months ago? Never hear that, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so interesting. I find the more I get to know myself, the more I'm just watching myself parent. I'm not really like, you talked about in that little quote there, right? Being reactionary, right? It's not really feeling it. You're just like reacting to whatever it is that's happening to you. And I really love now that I have at least enough self-awareness to catch myself a lot and being like, oh, okay. I'll say, like, kids, sorry, wait a sec. It's me. I'm having a bit of a rough day. you guys are cool. What do you got? What do you need? And I just kind of restart the whole thing over, and then they instantly are like, oh, I just need this. I just need that. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, catching yourself is so good, and I think that's what when I talk to new dads, and they're like, hey, what are some of the big things I should know, or what are your big tips? Like that's one of the things I say is get to know yourself, because it comes out. The things that you never thought you'd do, that they draw it out of you.
Oh, they do. It's true.
I remember I never once raised my voice my whole life. Like never once yelled at anyone or anything for any reason. And then as soon as I had kids, like I found myself like yelling a couple times, and it was like shocking to my system. I was like, what? Who is that? How did I get to a point where I wanted to yell at my kids, or just yell out loud? And so it's interesting. It's funny that way.
Yeah, so it's looking at, we're going to get triggered. Unless you're like a Buddha or a Jesus or somebody like this, and probably realistically they had some things to deal with too. We have those 4,000 points. We all have them, right? And so we're going to get triggered at some point, and it's what do we do at that point? Especially these little kids, 0 to about 9 years old, their personality is forming.
Yeah,
that's when they need us the most. Now the good news is, so even with my kids being adults now, the more work that I do, it still affects them.
Yeah.
It still helps them to heal wounds from their childhood.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, so aside from being a provider, all that's all important. But I can't stress enough how important that emotional support is.
Yeah.
Especially for guys who, most guys really don't, most people in general don't know how to process their emotions properly, but many guys they'll come to me and they're actually cut off from the majority of their emotions.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny too, Shawn, sorry to cut you off there, but
okay.
I find it's interesting that it's not so much that you're, I don't think we even understand, like I didn't, and I thought I was really in touch with my feelings until we talked, and then, you're like, oh, you actually pretty are cut off. Just because you have a day where you think of something, or you have a situation where you feel something, that's not being in touch with your feelings. That's just having a day where you remember reacting.
Yeah.
And so when dads come across those like intense feelings, do you got any tips for the like how to regulate that, how to like be present, I guess?
Yeah, both those are great terms. The regulation, because when we're in reaction, we're dysregulated.
Yeah.
Our nervous system literally is dysregulated, is activated. And being present. So there's a couple great things initially. So there's a depth. I like to go very, very deep as people are ready and willing to go there, right? So that we can actually work on all that unconscious stuff and reintegrate all these points of pain. But one of the best things you can do is learn what it actually means to be present.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean putting your phone away. It has nothing to do with presence. It helps. It's good, but presence means learning how to get out of your head. So majority of people, but majority of men especially, live from here up, from the neck up.
Totally.
Okay. And one of the first questions I'll ask people, especially when they'll come to me and say, well, I'm feeling anxious. So anxiety, stress, and maybe depression, but anxiety and stress are very, very common, and those seem to be acceptable emotions for guys, right?
Well said, yeah.
And it's okay, great. Where do you feel it? Oh, I feel it up here. That's just a symptom of the emotion. You might feel things head to toe, but the emotion itself lives in only one of 3 places: the heart, the solar plexus, or the low gut.
Yeah.
So find out where it starts. If you can do that, that's like a starting point to becoming present. So the idea is to move from your head into your body.
In your body, yeah.
Right? And if you can do that, then you're actually present. Then what happens, the reaction won't set in. See, what happens is people get triggered, these deep parts get triggered, we don't want to face them, so, oh my God, that's there, I won't deal with that. Yeah. I'll go into anger, I'll go into rage, I'll go into stress, I'll go into anxiety, whatever, because that's acceptable. Yeah. That's what I know, that's my coping strategy. Or I'll go into addiction or withdrawal or whatever it is. Maybe I'll shut down entirely, that's acceptable.
Okay.
Only when we go there, those reactive versions of the emotion, again, they're all valid, but the reactive version takes over our thinking, takes over our actions.
Yeah. People
say, I'm an overthinker. I'm always, well, yeah, because you're up here.
I remember you saying that to me when we were talking, and a lot of people say this. You will catch yourself, if you're watching this, listening to this, give yourself like an hour, and I'm sure you'll say it. Is we say like, I think,
Mm-hmm.
And remember, you were asking me one question. I was going on, and you're like, "Hey, man, you know what? Everything that you're saying is from here up." Like, I think. You're all just in your head, right? And I know there's that Tony Robbins quote. In your head, you're dead.
Yeah,
you know?
That's right.
And it's so very true, right? If you're just thinking, you're not actually doing anything. You're just thinking. You're not getting prepped for the future. You're not dealing with the past. You're just sitting there in this thinking state. And that was another big thing for me, just to let go of, like, thinking is going to be the solve. And I find, like, feelings are very much like a fitness to me, where I know it's good if I go to the gym. I know I will feel better, but I just find all the reasons to prevent myself from going, and feelings are very much the same way. Like, I know I'll feel better if I think about them. I know if I deal with that, I'll feel better, but I'm just, maybe not right now. Push, right?
Yeah.
And when you talked about being in your body, or like where things find yourself, for me, it was like, I'm the stomach guy, right? I just know if I just concentrate and think about, like, my guts, I'm like, there's stuff down there, I can feel it. It's not like and trauma, I think, is also I'll jump right off that topic, but I often relate for men, having a baby is a very traumatic experience, like going through trauma, right? We are one way and we've never thought a different way, and all of a sudden you're pregnant, you're having a baby, and you're like, oh my gosh, my brain's on fire, I have no idea what to do. I feel helpless, insecure, all these emotions that we just don't like as men. And then you have to start, like, it's so much easier to go golf more, or to go work more, or to fix the house more, instead of talk to your wife, or to, like, raise the children, right? So how do you, when people come to you, how do you help them deal with trauma?
That's a really good question. So I'm really glad you brought it up, Graham, because trauma is essentially what we're talking about.
Okay.
Everybody has some degree of trauma, and people misunderstand what trauma is. I like Gabor Mate's definition of trauma. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he said, trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you because of what happens to you.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's the pain that we experience that we don't know how to deal with, these 4,000 points of pain. Again, I've had people never had a wonderful childhood, nothing bad ever happened to them, and yet they're having panic attacks.
Yeah. Right?
Men, women, doesn't matter, right? And so what we want to do is actually a great analogy. I was told this by a therapist friend of mine. She likened those 4,000 points of pain to fish hooks.
Oh, sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is a great analogy. And so we walk around going through life with these 4,000 fish hooks, open wounds, right? And we're doing everything we can to not bump them.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Only we forget that they're there. That's the problem. Right?
Yeah.
But inevitably, what happens? One's going to get bumped, so now we feel irritated.
Yeah.
Right. Another one, I don't know, maybe somebody's sweater snags on it, so now we feel really anxious.
Yeah.
Maybe we bump somebody else's fish hook, so now they pull on like a whale-sized one, and we feel totally devastated, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of how these deep unconscious pain points, these triggers, this is what it means to be triggered. It means we're activating these pain points, and we don't know how to deal with them, so we move into the reaction. This is all trauma, right? But what happens if we remove all the fish hooks? Some people might say, well, I bleed out. No. The body's going to heal. You might have the scars, but they stop hurting. So now it gets touched. No reaction.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't mean you're always happy. Again, there's a lot of these pain points, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is now, instead of being a reaction, instead of having all these thoughts, people say, well, I just want to, you got to control your thoughts. You got to think, okay, there's some truth in that. But it's actually not the approach that we need to take.
Yeah.
Because when you actually examine the mind, I used to do an exercise with people, have them write whatever came to mind for 5 minutes straight without censoring, without stopping. So you have the mind being really negative. Oh, I can't do this. It's not going to work. Then all of a sudden it's really positive. Yeah, you got this. You're a rock star. You're awesome. Oh, look, squirrel.
Yeah.
Right? So it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
But if we move into the body, we move into what's called somatic processing. That's what I do with people. Then those trauma points, when they're activated, no longer take you over as a reaction. So now you show up differently. You don't show up from a conditioned set of beliefs of how you should be or shouldn't be. All the shoulds go. Okay. You're not trying to prove yourself anymore. You're not trying to prove that you're worthy or good enough or all these things that we do all the time. you're not escaping anything. This is, again, you going back to your example of you're going to go work more, going to go do this more because you don't know how to deal with it, right?
Sure.
When you learn how to deal with it, when you learn how to meet it properly in your body,
Yep.
no need for any escape whatsoever.
It's true. When we first started, and I remember we would do that, right? We'd be calm, right? Just think, like, how's your body feeling? Going through your feet, your arms. You're like, okay. But you kind of like chill out a bit, and then it's kind of like all of us. I'll speak from just myself, like as a man, for example. Not all men, of course, but we know what's there. We know there's a ton of times where we've been upset, and we just go, not today. I'll just, you know what? I just whatever. I'll deal with the pain later down the road. And you know what's there, and when you're calm like that, you can like go. You kind of get close to it, and it's kind of in your brain, right? You're like, okay, I'm getting close to it, and then you kind of want to touch it a little bit, and you're like, ooh, zzz. Like, okay, it's got a little life down there.
Yeah.
But when you're calm like that, and you crack open that first egg, and you're like, oh wow, and then you have like a good cry because you're like, this is wow. I had no idea I was really feeling that way about this. It's awesome. Yeah. And then it makes it easier and easier, just like going to the gym. First time is real tough, right? Probably overweight, not fit, everything's going to hurt. But the second time you do it, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. And now I find myself, it's like a joy. It's a joy to find them. It's like, oh man, I don't feel so good. And I just go and like, well, what is it?
Yeah.
What part of me is like, oh man, I just kind of feel I just feel like unsettled, and then you get to ask and discover, and it's like a beautiful treasure map in your body to find what you're doing. And it's tricky in the beginning, but your wife will thank you, your partner.
Big time.
Your kids will certainly thank you. And there's nothing more blissful and beautiful than doing the opposite of what we've been told men are supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And saying the words "I'm sorry" are just like a gift to be given, or asking someone, how are you, and listening. It's a pretty big deal, or instead of thinking that by telling your kids what to do, that's the answer. It's not really. It's supposed to be asking them what they want to do, having conversation about things. So so thanks for those toolkits, because I still use them.
Well, you're very welcome. And I'm glad to hear it, because it's a lot of guys, they'll be like, well, it's not very masculine to feel your emotions, and it has nothing to do with that. The emotions are there. Yeah. And if you suppress them, you stay stuck in what's called toxic masculinity, which you see all over the world.
Sure. Easy.
Real masculinity, true masculinity, there's a tremendous strength to it, a tremendous presence. And yes, there's the ability to take massive action, but it comes from a very, very different place.
Yeah.
Right? And there's, because you've been able to process these emotions and not all, like I said, many, many layers, many parts, but more and more and more, you become more and more present, more and more powerful. So you take, in Buddhism, it's called right action, right?
That makes
or
sense,
right thought, or right speech. So I'm Métis, I'm half Cree. And so the Cree people, when we go into a sweat lodge, which I've been doing ceremonies since I was 16, it's called Matutsan, which means crying lodge.
Dope.
So we go in in Lakota, it's called Inipi, which means purification. So we do purify, but we also are there to literally let all this come to the surface, let it be resolved.
Yeah, crying, I think, is a very interesting thing in itself that's worth like a couple seconds of chit chat, because I know what, kind of bringing this back to trauma and the intensity of babyhood and childhood, or having a baby, is when Michelle, my wife, randomly out of the blue ended up needing to have brain surgery. She's totally fine now, but I remember I was driving to the hospital to take her, and when it first happened, they're like, yeah, she needs to have brain surgery. There's a chance she could be dead in 3 days. And you're like, okay, wow. And you got to try and wrap all that stuff. And so it's very traumatic. But I'd be driving to the hospital and just having like a crazy cry, right? Just like, oh my gosh, just flooding it out. And then after the cry, there's that release. You just feel better. And then I would be like wiping my eyes. I'm like, wow, that was crazy. And then all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, whoop, it would just come right back up again. Yes. And I just realized that is like, to me, that's what trauma is. It's when something's so intense in your body that your body's like, look, this is coming out now.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing it on your own, so I'm going to do it for you. And get this cry thing going so that at least your body will just be able to chill a bit more, and you'll be a little bit more calm, because you can't, the cry's right there, and you're like, you're just maxed out. So I think there's something really beautiful about it. Good cry is super helpful. I love letting the kids see me cry. We've had cries together, like when my dad passed away. They're like, why are you so upset, Dad? And I'm like, oh, man, that's just because I love my dad, like, because it's comes out, it's beautiful. It cries with you. The first time I was like, wow, this is crazy. Crying with this guy, I don't even know him, I've never even met him. Like, dude, wow. I cried for like a good 5 minutes, and then it's almost like I couldn't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, what are we touching today in the body? Like, let's go, because it gets very addictive. It's I don't know. There's a real joy in being that close to how you feel.
It is, because we're moving more and more into what I can only call truth. So more of the deeper we go, the more we can properly process these things without getting stuck in them. I used to be guilty of getting stuck in emotions, and that's still the reactive emotion, right? But when we can actually go to the depth of the emotion, then not only do we experience a release, we experience an integration. And there's ways to do this, of course. There's processes, as you remember. But the more we do that, so the more fishhooks we remove, the more we get to be who we truly, truly are, not who we think we are.
Yeah.
Right? So there's an authenticity or an autonomy that starts to develop. And it's a process. I'm still guilty of getting stuck in certain patterns and so forth, right?
Totally.
But the more we do this work, the more people feel it. Even adult kids.
Yeah.
Right? Even, your ex-wife, if that's the case, like it is for me, right? Mm-hmm. Women especially. So women, I'm going to say about 60% of my clients are women, maybe a little bit more than that. And one thing that's very interesting about partners, so I get a lot of partners working together, women can feel, even without understanding what's going on, will feel when a man is present, will feel that change and that shift.
Sure.
Right? And what happens is at that point, she opens. I mean, yes, everyone has to do their own work, but the deeper we go as men, the more available we are for our partner, the more available we are for our kids.
Yeah.
Can you imagine not reacting to your kids' experience, their outbursts and their emotions and their tantrums and all this kind of, but actually just meeting them, being there fully. I'm sure you probably do this a lot.
Yeah.
And understanding they need something in this moment. And I, as the adult, can give it to them.
Yeah.
Instead of like a lot of people, you're being a little brat. No, they're not.
Yeah, they're kids.
They're kids.
Yeah.
Maybe they're testing a boundary. Maybe they, again, there's an unmet need here. What do they actually need?
And usually it's not a big thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, I guess this is what it is for me for fatherhood, is that there's just, you go into it blind for most guys, right? Like you just you think of women as an object that you want. You don't think about vaginas as something that's going to be delivering a human baby that you're going to be, half you. Now all of a sudden you're in this position of just starting at zero, feeling like so low. And so being able to just do those things and to not worry about the trauma that you had in the past and how it's gonna, if your dad was drunk, are you gonna be a drunk? Or your dad beat you, are you gonna beat your kids? I remember I had a beautiful friend come to me and say, hey man, I'm pregnant and I'm just super nervous because I had a really bad dad. And just being able to say, well man, you're gonna make your own choices. Your dad's not gonna make any choice for you. It's up to you. Like if you want to repeat what happened, you will. Yes. But it's just up to you to make that choice. And I think that's why I love the challenge of parenting, because it's just a daily choice that you've made to continue to be an amazing dad. And it's in you. It's in everyone to be a great dad. You're born with this innate ability. Like people raise kids through craziest hardships, hunger, starvation, you name it, right? And we, and if I guess the whole point of this conversation, what I want to get across is that it is doable. It is possible for you just to go, okay, I'm just going to chill and be a little calm and just sort of do some understanding, And the more you understand yourself, just the better everything around you gets. Yeah. Like you were saying, right? Yeah. It's just rubs off seamlessly. Yeah.
And part of that, actually my ex-wife and I were talking about this yesterday. So she's a therapist as well. And we still have a good relationship. We've been separated for 7 years. And, but, we share 3 kids and we shared 20 years of marriage together.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. And she kept trying to get me to make those choices when I was younger. I was very young. I was 22 when my oldest was born. Right?
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't make that choice. And there was consequences to that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Right. it's probably all of that is what led to doing the work that I do today with people, along with my writing, my art, but in terms of the therapy and the coaching. And one of the biggest things, I can't stress this enough. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your background is. As guys, you got to do the work. If you have kids, do the work.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like it's, if you don't, this is what generational trauma is.
Yeah.
Right? There's many versions of this. So again, being Indigenous, my grandma was raised in a residential school.
Yeah.
She and my dad and his siblings lived on the res. They didn't learn anything about culture. They had older cousins, some great parts of that, right?
Yeah.
All the big extended family around them. But no culture, no language, no ceremony, nothing,
Yeah.
right? Even though my dad's grandma, she was full blood, right?
Yeah.
And so comes, 16, I started learning ceremony. I grew up, for the past 30 plus years, I've been doing that. My kids grew up with it. So an example of, again, there's more to it than that, but an example of healing generational trauma.
Yeah.
And we can't do this on our own.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
No.
All this deep pain that we carry as human beings, most of it, not all maybe, but most of it is relational in nature, which means that it happened in relationship to somebody else.
Yeah, I think, totally.
And so you can't really just, and you can't even go to friends and family to deal with it, in large part because they don't know how to deal with it.
It never ceases to amaze me how the better you know yourself, the better everything in life gets. The better you are at business, for sure. The better you are at relationships, for sure. The better you are just like your own time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have you have a Sunday free, and you're like, I don't know what to do. That's just a time when you should be like, what? Okay, well, hold on a second. Like, what do I want to do? Like, what makes me feel good? Like, if I don't know what to do, then you should be looking in the mirror and just having some conversations. And I know that why is looked at as a very antagonistic question. It's very puts people's backs up. You get very defensive. Like, why did you do this, or what made you think about that? Even if you say it in a nice way, it has an attacking feel to it. But I've really come to love that word. Ask myself well, why, man? Why?
Yeah.
And not in even just saying it to myself, knowing that it's hard to answer why questions. But when you get around to doing them, it can feel really good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can use that. So many people, if they're struggling, going through something, be like, "Oh, why is this happening?" And poor me, why? But it's not like that. It's more, let's just get really real. Why is this? Sometimes things just happen. There's not, nothing we can do about that. But in terms of our part in it,
Yeah.
how did I contribute to this? Why am I repeating this pattern? Right? And like you say, finding out, what do I actually want? But what would make me feel really, truly alive? Because that's what the world needs. That's what our kids need. If you're truly alive, what's going to happen for them? They're going to feel truly alive too. And we can't do that if we're only pursuing pleasure or acting on our urges or being too rigid and just, disciplined in a negative sense. But the real discipline of going deeply inside and saying, what is really going on here? Why is this really happening?
Yeah.
What's actually needed? A lot of time it involves that somatic processing.
Yep.
And then from there, what aligned actions do I need to take towards the vision I have or what I'm called to do or be?
Well, I just wanted to say it's been amazing to have you here. This is actually the first time we've met in person, which is a miracle. And to everyone who's listening, when it comes to feelings, don't worry. If you rip off a scab, it's just going to take some time. It'll heal. You'll get there.
Yes.
So thank you very much, friend.
Of course.
Real pleasure.
It's a
pal.
pleasure. It's my honor to be here.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's go, dads. Hey,
All right.
we still got it. We got it.